Welcome to the Just Baseball Show. Thank you to everyone who is joining us on Sports Grid live on YouTube or listening on audio. My name is Peter Apple, and today we break down Aram Layton's top 100 prospects, which you can find the full list on justbaseball.com. And at the end, we will discuss the Mariners bringing back first baseman Josh Naylor on a 5-year deal as free agency has officially started. And this is all brought to us by the sportsbook born in Vegas, that is BetMGM, excuse me. And today, it's specifically geared towards the people of Missouri, as BetMGM is officially live. Get up to $1,500 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win, plus another $100 in bonus bets if you deposit before December 1st using promo code JUST Baseball. Sign up for BetMGM Sports during the pre-registration period, and you will receive $100 in bonus bets on the first day BetMGM Sports goes live in Missouri, plus the first bet offer $1,500 acquisition program. Absolute no-brainer. If you're interested, just remember to use code JustBaseball to unlock all of these special offers. Aram, can't wait. So excited to get into this list. Let's talk about the biggest risers from the previous update, and we got to start with one of the biggest, Nolan McLean, pitcher for the New York Mets, who came onto the scene, burst onto the scene, and was immediately one of the better pitchers in the National League.
Yeah.
And now he's all the way up from 42 to the number 3 spot in the top 100. Nolan McLean, let's hear it.
Oh man, I mean, and we're gonna you're gonna see a theme here through the biggest risers. It's big league success, and of course that's where you recalibrate. But you also don't want to overvalue big league success, right? So you don't want to say, oh, he had 3-4 good starts, so now I'm gonna override everything that I believed about him as a prospect. But Nolan McLean's a really unique situation because he is a guy that you didn't get to see throw a ton in college. You didn't get to see him throw a ton in the minor leagues, right? In 2024, he was still a two-way player. He didn't fully stop hitting until about midway through the season. So with Tommy John in college and limited innings, and then still doing a little bit of the two-way thing, it really felt like 2025 was a year where McLean finally had a full offseason just focusing as a pitcher. Finally had the opportunity to build up innings wise, and they just continue to throw more and learn. And you saw this final form of him in the big leagues where he was trending up to that. And then it just really all seemed to come together for him at the highest level. And you mentioned, he was absolutely dominant. It was a 2.06 ERA in 48 innings, and he struck out 57 and walked just 16. It's the assortment of pitches too. I think when he can get you with 2 different fastballs, he can throw as nasty of a sweeper as you're going to find. I know that the numbers against it weren't very good for him. I think it's going to be really good overall. It's ridiculous how he can spin it. And then he's got a cutter. He's got a curveball. He's got a splitter. He can attack you so many different ways and get you out in so many different ways that I think McLean looks like a really special arm who, even though he's already 24, his pitching age to me is like 20. And I think he's continuing to get better and better and better as we see him throw more.
And next up on the biggest risers is Trey Savage of the Toronto Blue Jays. And you talk about balancing regular season success while projecting 5-6 years into the future. How do you balance while adding his incredible postseason success? Because we've already seen it with a top prospect in the 2023 World Series with Evan Carter. If we just took that and said, he's the top prospect in baseball, look at him now. But it's got to be hard when you see how well Trey Savage did do in the postseason. So how do you balance that? But he's all the way up to number 6 on your top 100.
Well, you run our socials. You did I call the reaction or did I call the reaction?
To a T.
What do you mean? Did you not watch the World Series? Yes, I did. That's why he's 7 or 6 now. Excuse me. You're evaluating, as you alluded to, Peter, you're evaluating for the next 6 years. And what is it going to look like for the next 6 years? Now, Savage, I think what he showed in the playoffs is that his release is extremely unique. We knew that already, though. If you look at the preseason write-up, that was something I always thought made him really, really high floor type of an arm, but also just unique in general. But I think what we saw on the big stage was that maybe he's not as easy to game plan for as some may have thought. Like, okay, well, it's fastball splitter and it's a really high release. Just try to bring him up. The Dodgers couldn't do that. And that backup slider that he has, I think, was another reason why. So I think we saw that, one, the intangibles, in the playoffs. Clearly, he's able to handle the big moment. Clearly, he's not really fazed by that. Also, you're able to see him kind of turn the lineup over, change his looks a little bit, and then you just realize how much of an outlier look he's giving you. But at the same time, like, you can't just look at one start and say, oh, well, now I think the next 6 years are going to be different than what I thought they were going to be. And I think that's important too. Like, it was a really good postseason. There was the one World Series start that really, really catapulted him. It was a 3.58 ERA over 6 games. Really, really good. 36% strikeout rate. It was an amazing postseason. But I don't think you can just totally override your priors on a guy and say, oh, he should be the number one prospect. I think if Connor Griffin was offered for Trey Savage, and we're going to get to the top 10, I'd imagine, maybe it's where the Blue Jays are at. Maybe they don't do it, but I'd imagine that almost every single team saying yes to that. They're taking Connor Griffin in 2 seconds. I think you saw the floor really solidified with Savage, and there's a little bit more to dream on if he can add a fourth pitch into the equation. But it was really just the performance at the highest level solidified the floor, but I don't think it changed the ceiling that much. And I think that's why he's still not in the top 5.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's going to make Blue Jays fans a little bit upset, but at the end of the day, you didn't rank him 40th. You ranked him 6th. He's the second best pitcher in your top 100. So you clearly love what you saw. It's just about balancing that going into the future. And I'm sure you would agree that Nolan McLean might have a higher ceiling than Trey Savage and maybe a similar floor.
That's the thing. It's the only difference between McLean and Savage is that McLean just didn't get the chance to do it. So, like, are we going to dock him for that? When he did make his 8 starts in the big leagues, he was really damn good. And what would he have done in this World Series if he got an opportunity he didn't get to? I don't take too much from a couple starts. It's just too difficult.
And next up on the biggest risers, and this was a big jump from number 52 in the last update to number 12, Aiden Miller of the Philadelphia Phillies. Because I think when you think top Phillies prospects, your mind immediately goes to Andrew Painter. But this is another guy who has emerged as one of the best prospects in baseball. Why?
One of the few that didn't have big league success to catapult him, but he had incredible upper level success. It was a really rough start to the year for him. And I think a big focus for Miller was the defensive side of things at shortstop. And he has progressed so well there to where he went from a guy that I thought, may slide over to third to now looks like an above average defender at shortstop. But through the first 60 games of the season, AA mostly, he had a 703 OPS. Then pretty much the rest of the way, 56 game sample, he hit 300 with a 953 OPS, started to slug way more. The defense continued to get better. He became much more of a factor on the base paths. Like, it was every aspect of his game improved. And he was 20 years old, Aiden Miller was at the start of the season. The thing that stands out the most to me is you can't beat him with velocity. From July 1st onward, Miller hit over 400 with an 1170 OPS against fastballs. And fastballs 93 plus. He had a 1277 OPS in that span. And that's like an 80 plate appearance sample. So he really geared himself up to be able to handle velocity. His swing decisions are elite. It was like an 18% chase rate. He needs to improve a little bit more, against breaking balls, but the swing decisions are so good. Like, that's the last little piece. But when you're defending, you're playing phenomenal defense. You're not missing heaters, and you're rarely chasing breaking balls. I think that's a really high floor. And I don't know what the shortstop plan is, 3 or 4 years down the line from now. But I think he's proven, Aiden Miller, that you can just stick him at third right now and be a really good player for you as soon as, the early going of this coming season.
We got about 40 seconds left. Do you think that Aiden Miller could be the Phillies' third baseman as soon as the start of next year if they move off Alec Boehm?
I think they have a lot of guys they need to pay. And Miller, I think, can bring a lot of things that Boehm hasn't to the table. I think a better glove, more speed. Maybe the bat doesn't quite make an impact as quickly because there's growing pains. But ultimately, I think he's worth the shot in doing that because of the defense, the speed. And if the bat does come along, he gives you a higher ceiling than what you got with Boehm as well.
So we got a lot more risers to talk about from Aram's top 100 prospects list. We will continue next here on the Just Baseball Show right after this. All right, let's continue with biggest risers here. Next up on the list, and I saw the opening Rookie of the Year odds on BetMGM, and Carter Jensen is not getting enough respect. This guy pillages baseball. When we were in Atlanta watching the Futures game, watching this guy hit batting practice, he was hitting the ball as far and as loud as any player there, but he doesn't have the same stature.
No.
And Royals fans, they're used to 40 home runs from Salvador Perez at their catching position. And while he might not be 40 home runs, he certainly has the power to do so. But it seems like there's some good plate discipline here with Carter Jensen as well.
And that was the big wrinkle. I think that's really progressed nicely with him. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because there was swing and miss concern and just strikeouts concern in general. And I think you saw that the plate discipline improved drastically, especially against spin this year, where he was just rarely chasing against spin and usually quality spin. I think it was like a 15% chase rate against breaking balls. Then on top of that, you see him hammering heaters as well as ever. You see the exit velocities climb to the highest mark we've seen. Between his big league debut and his minor league season this year, Jensen had a 55% hard hit rate, which, is, I think, 20% above average. So that part of it was amazing. He started to elevate the ball more consistently. You mentioned just the BP laser show that he puts on, and now just converting that into game power more. I always had some questions about the defense, and now, I think there's still some questions about how impactful of a defender he's going to be behind the dish, but that he's going to be a guy that can get by at least behind the dish and be, I think, pretty close to average, which is fine. And he's 22 and athletic, so there's room for more, but at least looks like someone that you don't have to worry about moving off the position there. And then you started to see that power really start to shine through at the big league level, though. He had a home run 113 miles per hour, 480 feet, I think, in Sacramento. You started to see a lot of 110 plus EVs. And he started to hit lefties better as well. So if Jensen has all of those things going for him, I think, as you alluded to, he's one of the dark horses for Rookie of the Year. I think it's some of the, as I've always said with him, some of the most underrated raw power in baseball. It's 70 grade raw power just about. And now that the other complementary skills are all coming along really well.
And it's funny, we look at guys like Nolan McLean or Trey Savage, and their cup of coffee in Major League Baseball was fantastic. Carter Jensen had the same. It's just the Royals were not in playoff contention. He put up a 159 WRC plus through his first 20-ish games for the Royals, meaning he was 59% better than a league average hitter. So if he could be a league average defender at catcher, we're looking at potentially one of the better young catchers in the game. And speaking about young catchers, Joe Mack, one of your favorite prospects in baseball. You've been talking about this guy for a long time. It was probably fun to see him continue to rise up this list, going from 48 to now 26 on the top 100 for the Miami Marlins.
It was interesting because of the timing of the last update. Mack was struggling a little bit in AAA. Then I think really there was a focus on handling pitch shapes a little bit better. Breaking balls were giving him some challenges, and a little bit more of just the preparation and what goes into the swing decisions approach. And he sprinted through the finish line, Mack did, in his final 30 games. At an 863 OPS in AAA, 8 homers in that span. And the thing with Mack is he might be the best defensive catcher that you've got in the upper minor leagues right now. So there was one throw I know you saw I put out on Twitter towards the end of the season where he looked like he was about to throw to third, and then I don't know if it was intentional or a last second adjustment, and kind of threw flat-footed, almost like a shortstop, straight across to second base while his feet were taking him to third, and it was right on the money. And I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen a catcher make a throw like that. And then you had big leaguers, former catchers, quote tweeting and saying, holy crap, I've never seen anybody do this. So I think you look at that, the receiving, the way he defends, he has a chance to be a 70 grade defender. The offensive barrier at that point, if you're that good of a defensive catcher, to be 3+ WAR guy, is very low. We look at Patrick Bailey and other guys like that. But Mack has above average to plus power. So yes, I have some concern that the hit tool is going to be below average. But even if he's a 30 grade hitter, if he's walking and he's hitting 20 to 25 home runs with 70 grade defense, that's a catcher that can put up 4 WAR seasons. So that's where I look at Mack and say, the defense is already so good. If the hit tool can come along a little bit more, he's in a really good spot. But even as is, if he's a mistake hitter as a left-handed bat with the glove that he has, Mac has a really high floor as at least an average big league catcher.
And that'll be huge for a young Marlins rotation because we already know that they have Sandy and Edward at the top, but they continue to bring up other prospects again, which you can find on your top 100, probably headlined by Thomas White. So you got a core of young pitchers and a catcher who's going to make his money off defense, which will again make the starting rotation, the young guys, even better. Another huge jump that I want to talk about, Luis Morales of the no city designation Athletics, 74-27. I think when you think A's prospects, you think of Leo DeVries. We'll talk about the top 10. He's well within it. The guy that they acquired in the Mason Miller deal at last year's trade deadline. But Luis Morales becoming one of the best prospects in baseball?
Yeah. I mean, a guy I've loved for a long time here. I think we've had him on the top 100 list as long as anybody. And my I guess I had two concerns with Morales. It was one, will he throw enough strikes? Two, what will the fastball shape look like with the big league ball? So typically, when guys get to AAA and then the big leagues, that fastball will flatten out a little bit, induce vertical break wise. Like you'll lose a little bit of carry there, and it affects different pitchers differently, just the way that they throw. But I was concerned with Morales because it's more of a velocity over shape thing. He sits in his big league debut in the 10 appearances, he averaged 97.5 with it. So I knew it was going to play, but how well was it going to play? And the shape did get knocked down a little bit, but not as much as, I think you see with some others. And then you saw just the sheer velocity and still just playing really well from there. So that was encouraging. And then you also just have more disciplined hitters, tighter strike zone at the big league level. How is he going to respond to that? 9% walk rate. So, I still think there's some hurdles for him to reach his ceiling, but we're talking about a right-hander here who sits in the upper 90s, who, by the way, was 22 years old last year, has a curveball that flashes plus, a changeup that has looked like a plus pitch through stretches, and even added a little bit of a bridge slider as well. You have that pitch mix, you have the sheer velocity, and now the command is coming along and doing what he did at the big league level in an environment where it was really hard to pitch. Like Luis Severino really struggled with the splits there. And, I think you look at some of the things that he overcame and being able to work around the long ball that just is inevitable in that ballpark. It was impressive to pitch to a 3.14 ERA in 48 2/3 innings. So I'm excited about Morales, and I think he's a big piece of this next phase for the A's as they look at, now bolstering the pitching side of things, because obviously they don't need to do much on the offensive side.
We only have about 8 seconds left. When do you think the A's will see him?
I think we'll see him opening day. He might be their opening day starter.
So let's talk about best prospects on the best teams in a quick sec. All right. Which organization, Aram, in Major League Baseball has the most top 100 prospects on your list?
It's the Mets. Which is the funny part, right? Because they were buyers at the deadline, but they were efficient buyers. Yeah, you look at, they traded from a lot of their depth, and that's kind of the Stearns way, right? Like, we're going to build a lot of pitching depth, we're going to identify a lot of arms, and that'll be the capital that we will trade from. And that's exactly what they did. But with the Mets, what we've got 8 top 100 prospects. Of course, we talked about Nolan McLean. Carson Benj is one of my favorite one of my favorite outfield prospects in baseball, has long been. Then you have Jonah Tong with the year that he had. AJ Ewing was another big riser from unranked. He's kind of a new face up to 65. He's a dynamic, player. And then you got Jet Williams, Brandon Sproat, who's already at the big leagues, Jacob Reimer, and then Ryan Clifford, who snuck his way into the top 100 again after the year that he had. Huge power bat at first base that was putting up plus EVs and really had some success at the AAA level. So you have this farm system, which is also balanced with arms and bats at the top. And it's really easy to get excited about what the Mets have building there. I know it was a disappointing year to a degree, but they've got offensive reinforcements coming at positions that they need. As Benj, I think, has a chance to break camp for them in center field. And then you have pitchers that are either already in the big leagues helping you or knocking on the door. And on top of that, Jack Wenninger's a prospect who just missed. We'll talk a little bit more about, and he could have easily been in the top 100 as well and given them a ninth. So it is a really, it does drop off, I will say, outside of the top 10, but it is as strong of a top 10 as you have in, in Major League Baseball.
Now, is this all David Stearns, or have these been prospects that have been in the system that have maybe just matured and gotten better, plus Stearns bringing in a couple of guys? Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit of both. Obviously, some of these guys have been here for a little bit, but it's also you wonder, like, with the new player development infrastructure that they have there, like how much has that helped to Jonah Tong, who went from 7th rounder to making another leap this past year, and a guy like AJ Ewing, who now added more impact, and even a guy like Nolan McLean, who just continues to optimize that pitch mix. Like, would that have happened without the player development infrastructure they had before? I don't know. But you just see every player progressing so well. Jacob Reimer makes a swing adjustment and taps into more power and cuts the strikeout rate down. Ryan Clifford makes a little bit of an adjustment and starts to tap into more game power. I don't think all of those things can be a coincidence. So I think there is just a level of player development that's going on with the Mets right now, that most of their guys that have the talent are starting to reach closer to tapping into, the majority of that talent.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it does seem like, obviously, Nolan McLean is going to be in the rotation next year. Carson Benj is likely going to be the starting center fielder, right? We talk about, trade rumors or signing a free agent center fielder. Do you think the Mets are just in the best position to go, hey, Carson Benj, this is your job?
I would. And I know people are going to look at the AAA numbers and say, oh, but he didn't light it up in AAA. He was playing really well in AAA, took a ball off the hand, tried to play through it or off the wrist. It was definitely affecting him. Took like a week or two to get back. And then after that, sprinted through the finish line. I honestly think Benj is going to have a chance to break camp with a good spring training. And even if it doesn't happen right away, I think he's a guy that they have a chance to bring up pretty early there, because it's a combination of good defense, I think good swing decisions, good bat to ball, underrated power. All those things kind of come together where I think he fits the bill of somebody that you can push pretty aggressively, and he fits exactly what they need.
And what other teams in the top 100 did you notice have a large amount of top 100 guys?
So there's only one team with 8. That's the Mets. There's only one team with 7, and that's the Mariners. And they also have the combination of guys at the top. Colt Emerson, our number 5 prospect, got Cade Anderson, 31, Ryan Sloan, 32. Like, that's as fun of a 3-headed monster as you've got. But then they've also got guys in the back half of the top 50 or top 100 that I feel really good about in one way or another. Johnny Farmelo and Laz Montes are riskier, but man, are they exciting, right? Montes could hit 40 homers if it all works out. Johnny Farmelo is a plus runner who can potentially tap into plus power as well. Harry Ford is a big league caliber catcher right now. And that's a guy that is already, knocking on the door of doing that more consistently. He's just blocked, so he might get traded. And then Michael Arroyo has been one of the more productive hitters in the minor leagues over the last, several years. And then they've got more guys like Durangelo Senja with a strong start to the season this year. Could be a guy that jumps into the top 100. They have several other intriguing prospects as well. So, I mean, the Mariners, as you know, too, they're always a wagon. And then 6 top 100 guys with the Guardians and the Dodgers, which I don't think that's surprising either.
Guardians and the Dodgers. Just hearing that the Dodgers have such a great farm system. Again, we only have about, 40 seconds here. The Dodgers from top to bottom just have to be by far the best organization in Major League Baseball. I know it sounds obvious, but there's not a lot of teams that win back-to-back World Series and then have 6 top 100 prospects.
Well, you look at one of the guys that was the biggest risers. Unfortunately, he was hurt at the back half of the year, Mike Sirota, with a knee issue. But Mike Sirota, like, it's not because he's on the Dodgers now that he's a top 100 prospect. He was acquired in the Gavin Lux deal. It's because he tapped into a 90th percentile exit velocity north of 107 miles per hour, is a plus runner, and can play great center field. How you got that guy for Gavin Lux, how he slipped to the 3rd round, I don't know. But that's why the Dodgers are the Dodgers as well.
Top 10 prospects next. The top 10 prospects in Major League Baseball, again, which you can find on the top 100 list here on justbaseball.com. Aram Layton is here to break it down. And at number 10, Max Clark of the Detroit Tigers, what makes Max Clark a top 10 prospect in baseball?
I think he did just about everything you wanted to see from him last year, right? I mean, he starts to tap into more power. I think it was kind of a secret. I feel like it didn't get enough press. He was popping exit velocities north of 110 miles per hour. The other side is the contact rates got better. His path improved where he started to produce a lot more against breaking balls. And I know that was something that he specifically trained. It was a chase rate south of 20%. The defense continues to come along in center field. Like, it was everything that you wanted to see from Max Clark. And by the way, doing a lot of those things after a promotion up to Double-A as well. So when I look at him in totality, I think the way to push the ceiling up was tapping into more power. And he did that, whether it's a little bit more in the air pull department with the 14 homers and 5 triples, but also the EVs where you've got a 90th percentile of 104.5. And again, to make that improvement power wise while also improving drastically against breaking balls, I think is really encouraging.
Next up at number 9, JJ Weatherholt of the St. Louis Cardinals. And I remember on draft day, you, myself, Jack, the whole room here at Just Baseball was pounding the table. Draft Weatherholt number 1. We were big fans of Bazana, and you are too. And you'll find that on this top 100 prospects list. It's just JJ Weatherholt had a hamstring injury, and I feel like that's what led him to drop because it wasn't his performance on the field. And now we're seeing, when healthy, a top 9 prospect in baseball.
I mean, the floor is so high. I don't think the ceiling maybe is as high as some of the other guys that we're going to talk about here. But the floor, man, I mean, it's elite swing decisions. It's a phenomenal feel to spray the ball to all fields now. Cause that was the thing that was interesting is, at points he was not, pulling the ball in the air at the clip that you wanted to see. Got back to that this year. And you really saw that in the back half of the year. Is he going to stick and play a great shortstop? That's the other question. I think he can get by there, but I also think he's a guy that can go play third or second base at a fine level as well. But I think it's all about the bat here, where you have a guy that's performed well left on left. He walked as much as he struck out this year. He's flashing above average power. He just hits the ball hard consistently, and he's really hard to strike out. He's a sum of his parts type of player that I think you can really count on to give you a really exciting blend of on base and above average pop, with it being really hard to find a deficiency in his game.
And next up, Samuel Basallo of the Baltimore Orioles. And it's pretty obvious why he's a top prospect. We saw it with the bat early, and the Orioles were so convinced that they gave him a long-term extension. So this was probably one of the easier guys to put in the top 10 because, he's going to hit for a very long time, and the Orioles, a smart organization, already paid the man.
I don't know, man. He finished the year 0 for 13 with 8 strikeouts, so it might be over.
That's why he's 8 and not 5.
Yeah, it might be over. No, he is, and I don't love comps, but when they're uncanny, I'm going to throw a couple out in the top 10 here. Actually, I have to. I can't escape them. It really is that Rafael Devers starter kit offensively, and if he's doing that, even if it's 80% of that, and he's a passable catcher that also plays first base, that's just so valuable, right? So I think we've seen the defense come along where I think he can catch a couple times a week. I think he's looking like a guy that could be athletic enough to play first base. He ended up catching way more because of the Adler injury. But I think ultimately, you probably have him catch a few times per week. And then the power is ridiculous. The ability to hit balls. He's already one of the better bad ball hitters, in the major leagues. It's a hard hit rate north of 53%. It's elite exit velocities, and he can elevate easily to all fields. He is a monster offensively.
Next up, Leo DeVries of the No City Designation Athletics, the player acquired at the deadline for Mason Miller. Preller sent his best prospect over. And at the time, we debated it on this show because I thought if you can turn Mason Miller into a starter, this will all be worth it. And all indicators are telling us that's the eventual Padres plan. Now, who knows? Maybe they move off that, but that's what it seemed like to get a young, controllable starter like that with unbelievable stuff. That's the reason you have to part with one of the best prospects in baseball.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a world where it ages well for both sides. I think what made it sting a little bit more is that an 18-year-old in DeVries was then promptly, after the trade, promoted to Double-A after about a week or two, and proceeded to, if you include the postseason games where he went nuts as well, in 26 Double-A games prior to his 19th birthday. hit 306 with a 995 OPS. That's not going to help in the short term when you're trying to, wrap your mind around that trade. What's amazing to me with DeVries is, maybe nothing jumps off the page data-wise just yet because he's a kid, but 8 homers in 26 games in that span because he already is so adept to pulling the ball in the air. It was a 33% ground ball rate in that span. When he's in his advantage counts, he makes sure to get that barrel out there and just crush balls out in front of the plate. Like, he has this feel to be able to tap into more power than maybe the raw EVs will suggest. And I'll bet on a kid that just turned 19 tapping into more power as he matures. But to launch 18 home runs with roughly average exit velocities this year and to do it at the highest level there, where 8 of them, came down the stretch, he is such a special talent as a switch hitter who has now really found a way to even out the sides. He's better from the left side, but the right side has closed the gap a little bit. I have some questions about the defense in terms of, like, can he be a little bit more consistent? But the tools are there. I think he can be a solid, above average shortstop if it all comes together. But when you look at a switch hitter with plus power potential that's getting on base at a good clip and not striking out and reaching Double A and having success in Double A at 19 years old, that's a special player there potentially.
That is a special player. Moving down the list at number 6, Trey Savage of the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, in the earlier segment, you kind of already gave us the elevator pitch on why it's hard to balance regular season and, of course, postseason success while ranking prospects for the future. My question that I'm very curious about, because Trey Savage is basically a 3-pitch guy. And even when he's at his best, he can dominate with just 2 pitches. Do you think Trey Savage could get better by adding more pitches to the repertoire? Or do you think there's more room to grow with the 3 pitches that he currently has, and that's how he continues to elevate his status?
That's a great question. I think you can always benefit from adding another offering, but you also don't want to take away from a trio that clearly is just so unique.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so tough for hitters is, even though everything really works north-south, the slider has enough horizontal difference from the splitter at a 4-mile-per-hour different speed that it seems to create these 3 similar but different enough looks that puts you in this tunnel blender kind of that you have to deal with, where it's like, oh, they're all similar. I should be able to zero in a little bit, but when I zero in, they're all different enough to where I'm swinging over it, or I'm getting frozen at the knees, or whatever it may be. So I think the 3 pitches work off of each other really well, and I think a 4th would really just be more of a taste breaker, or like to change his looks, because I think Savage did a really good job of, especially in the postseason, being able to change his looks. I'm not going to show you all 3 early in the game. You're going to see more slider early on or more splitter early on, and then you'll see a little bit of the other later. I think that's what's really made him so difficult. And then I think we see the fastball just setting the tone the way that it does. I think the number one thing that's going to push him higher and higher is just consistency of execution, because I think that really was the difference between those great postseason starts and the so-so ones.
Next up, as we enter the top 5 here, and we got about a minute 30, so I'm sure your explanation on Colt Emerson for the Seattle Mariners will bleed into the next segment. But I love hearing you talk about Colt Emerson, because there's a certain twinkle in your eye when you talk about this guy, because you've been high on him for a very, very long time, continues to rise up your list, and now at number 5.
Yeah, so he made an adjustment that I loved, and we'll talk a little bit about it probably more on the back half here, but he switched from like a bigger leg kick that was pushing his weight forward to a toe tap that allowed him to manage his weight better and interact with the ground better and keep his weight back. And from that point forward, he was one of the best hitters in the minor leagues, and doing that at 19 years old at the AA and AAA level. Also, the defense is just taking a leap as well at the shortstop position. But when you make that leap where you cut your ground ball rate by almost 20% after making the change, the EVs are there, you're succeeding as a 19-year-old in AA and AAA, it's just easy to buy into what he can be. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that on the other side.
Yeah, but we still have about 30 seconds here.
Okay.
Is there a chance that he debuts next year with the Seattle Mariners?
I think he debuts next year. I'm just curious where. You have JP Crawford,
Yeah.
and he's under contract, I think, for another year. You don't want to disrupt things too much, but maybe Emerson can plug in at third where he'd be a phenomenal defender. Maybe you could mix him in at second, but I know you have Cole Young. That's where I'm really fascinated to see what they do. You obviously start the year with him at AAA, but he was really good in his handful of games there. So if he continues to do that, I think it's going to become a difficult decision about, do you prioritize the future with Emerson?
Next up, top 5. All right, continuing down, you mentioned that big leg kick that Colt Emerson had to really vault himself into one of the better hitters in the minor leagues as well, if you could build off that.
Yeah, so it honestly was the ditching it that made him better, where he was able to control that weight more
Mm.
with the toe tap. And I put out a piece on justbaseball.com about a couple months ago on that, and it was amazing to just see how the batted ball data completely changed from that point forward, where I think it allowed him to deliver the barrel at the proper angle. When your weight's not pushing forward, you're not going to have the barrel entering the zone kind of more downhill and steep, so you're able to work behind the baseball and elevate it more. And when you look at his first, I believe it was like 80 games of the season, Emerson was putting the ball on the ground at a 51% clip. The rest of the way, it was a 39% clip. Cut the strikeout rate down, was slugging more. You have that left-handed swing with still more room for power, with a good feel to hit, with a good approach. I just feel so confident that Emerson's going to be an everyday shortstop at the highest level, but he has the potential to be a really good one at that.
Moving on to number 4, Jesus Mate of the Milwaukee Brewers, the youngest player in the top 10 at just 18 years old. If I could summarize him in one word, wouldn't it just be freak?
Freak. He is the quickest hands I've seen from a prospect in a long time. Like where there's pitches running in onto inside, like up against his body, and he somehow just whips the barrel out. It looks like he's swinging a wiffle ball bat sometimes. And you see it from both sides of the plate, which is the craziest part. I don't know if I can, like, I don't think I can fact check this, but I don't think there's another hitter. Like, I know he did this. I don't think there's another hitter in the minor leagues who posted 110 mile per hour exit velocity from both sides of the plate. But that's what Jesus Mate did. And mind you, he did that at 18 years old. He was 17 years old at the start of the season. To be able to already 6'1", 200 pounds, switch hitting 18-year-old, be posting exit velocities north of 110 from both sides of the plate is bonkers. And what's crazy, the other part of it is he's still tapping into his potential here. I think there's more power just as he optimizes his angles a little bit more. It's kind of a noisy operation that he gets away with because his hands are ridiculous. But as he cleans up the mechanics a little bit, I think you'll start to see him elevate the ball a bit more. The other part that's nuts to me is in a season where he was 17 years old to start, he finished the year in Double-A and had some Double-A success. His last game of the year was a Double-A postseason game where he went deep. Like, he's going to be 18 years old still at the start of the season. We'll be getting a second taste of Double-A in 2026. I don't know if he sticks it short, and if he moves over to second base, I think he's going to be one of the more dynamic, exciting second basemen in the game if it all works together. And that's why when I look at Jesus Mate, again, this is one of the other few comps I'll throw out today. I can't escape the Ketel Marte comp with him because they look so similar in the way that they operate, their frame-defying juice, and just how special they are from both sides of the plate.
And moving on to number 3, Nolan McLean, of course, of the New York Mets. And we've already talked about him a lot. I'm more interested in the gap between him, Trey Savage at number 6, and if you go read the list on justbaseball.com, you'll see Bubba Chandler of the Pittsburgh Pirates at number 11, just missed that top 10. Do you think they're all in a similar bucket? Because, people hang on the number on the rankings a lot where they say, oh, this guy's 42 when he should be 47 or something like that, where they all could be in the same bucket. Like, do you view them all as 1A, 1B, 1C? Or is Nolan McLean 1A and then Savage is 2 and Bubba is 3? Or how do you gauge that?
I think Bubba and Savage are very, very close, where like it wouldn't surprise me at all if Bubba's better than Savage next season, to be honest. But you're just kind of taking in stride what we saw, and that's where you balance a little bit of the edge of just having the performance at the highest level. But again, Bubba had a really good 3 starts to finish out the year. Nolan McLean is one where, and again, maybe I'm getting a little like overly bullish. I just think he's so unique that he separates himself a little bit from them. I don't think it's a full like 1 and then 2. I think he's 1A and then the other 2 are kind of 1B and 1C. But I do think McLean has a little bit more of a gap, obviously, than Bubba and Savage do between each other, just because of the different ways that he can get you out. I mean, at the big league level, he had a 60% ground ball rate, and he can also strike you out at about a 30% clip with the way he was throwing the ball as well, too. It's this low release where he's got the four-seamer that plays at the top and then the sinker that runs off of it that is just a ground ball machine. 80% ground ball rate on the sinker in the big leagues. And nobody hit that at any level this year is what really stands out to me as well. So you have that fastball setting the tone, and it's two different fastballs. Then you have this wicked feel to spin ridiculous breaking balls, both a curveball that is too plain and a sweeper. Then you've got this cutter, this splitter as well. I just don't know how you game plan for a pitcher like Nolan McLean, who's only getting better. And even if you game plan and feel like you're on him, you're still probably going to roll over and hit it into the ground. So I just think there's so many ways for him to succeed that I think he's built for, the highest ceiling of all of them.
And we have about 2 minutes and 20 seconds left. And I want to spend this talking about number 2. And then number 1 will bleed into the next segment as we talk about Josh Naylor signing with the Seattle Mariners. Kevin McGonigal of the Detroit Tigers. In a previous Just Baseball episode, we were talking about Tigers mock trades. And you said, maybe I would send Max Clark if I was able to bring in Ketel Marte, but Kevin McGonigal is untradeable. Why is Kevin McGonigal untradeable?
He's one of the most productive hitters we've seen in the minor leagues in several years, and not even just productive. I would say well-rounded and consistent. This was a stat that I got from our guy Peyton. I just put out on Twitter. But since 2006, because I asked him, I'm like, I don't remember the last time I've seen somebody like do what McGonigal has done. Like, let's try to pull this. Since 2006, only 3 minor leaguers have posted an OPS of at least 850 with 25 homers and a BB to K ratio, strikeout to walk rate of at least 1.2. Kevin McGonigal, age 18 to 20, with a 163 WRC plus. Wander Franco is one of the more prolific minor leaguers we've seen, obviously, and like consensus number 1 prospect for multiple years. Age 17 to age 21 had a 155 WRC plus, and then Mookie Betts, age 18 to 22, had a 151 WRC plus. So McGonigal had the best numbers of all of them, same age range mostly, and if he's going to spend more time in the minor leagues, he's going to continue to push that up, and that's not including his Barry Bonds numbers in the AFL. The blend of hit and power is crazy, and I think people always slept on the power that McGonigal has, where now he's flashing the potential for plus power. If he's doing that with the best bat to ball skills I think you got really in the minor leagues, or at least just the best pure hitting ability in the minor leagues, the fact that he now looks like he can stick at shortstop, and even if you move him off of shortstop, he's going to play a solid third. They were giving him reps there in the AFL. He has one of the highest launch angles on batted balls 95 plus, which I love. His average launch angle on batted balls 95 plus is 21 degrees this past year, which means anytime he's hitting the ball hard and hitting it the hardest, it's going at optimal angles where he's going to outslug.
Number 1 prospect in baseball, and Josh Naylor to the Mariners next. Didn't mean to cut you off there, my friend, but sorry, I'm really excited to also talk about the number 1 prospect in baseball, and that is Connor Griffin of the Pittsburgh Pirates. The floor is yours, because I could ask a ton of questions about why this guy is so incredible, but I'll let you take it away.
You know how sad it made me to not have Connor Griffin or not have Kevin McGonigal at number 1, given how high we've been on him for so long, but I always just boil it down to this. Like, we put out the top 100 midseason update at the end of July. Connor Griffin was number 2. From August 1st onward, Connor Griffin at 19 years old, at AA mostly, hit 351 with a 988 OPS, stole a trillion bags, hit 8 homers, and was playing plus defense at shortstop while also mixing in center field where he looks like he could be a good defender. It's just crazy stuff. I was talking to our guys at Bucko Banner, who host the Pirates podcast on our network, and I was like, what do you think the positional split's going to be for him? And he said that Connor had mentioned on the show to them that the Pirates would have him play center field. Like, they kind of said, you'll play center field when you're slumping, like, just so we can, just change it up for you and refresh things. Well, he never slumped. So then they just kind of threw him out into center field just once or twice a week. But you're talking about plus power, and I think he's still tapping into more, even though he hit 21 home runs this year. Plus speed, the ability to play a good center field, cutting down on the strikeout rate as the season progressed. As an 18-year-old, 19-year-old with those tools to strike out from June onward, like sub 20% with an OPS nearly of 1,000. And there's still more power to tap into there. He is that tool set and production at an age that you don't expect it already, that is reminiscent of some of the best prospects we've seen, of the Bobby Witts and guys like that. And that's why you can't deny him as, the number one prospect, as a true 5-tool potential star.
And that'll do it for the top 10 prospects and our overview of the entire top 100 prospects, again, which you can find on justbaseball.com. And for any prospect heads who want even more, Aram will be answering questions in our Discord. You can find the link to join in our episode description. It's less than a price of a sandwich to join, but also he will be going live on our YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern tonight to answer more of your questions. Let's move off prospects and talk about Josh Naylor signing with the Seattle Mariners on Sunday. We got our first Jeff Passan breaking tweet as the Mariners and Josh Naylor, first baseman, agreed to a 5-year deal in the $90 to $100 million range. We don't exactly have the exact dollar amount, but that was about what was reported. Josh Naylor, once acquired by the Mariners, hit .299, .341, .490 with 9 home runs, 33 RBIs, and an .831 OPS. Went 19 for 19 in stolen bases. And in that period, only 2 players posted a .290 batting average and 15 stolen bases from the time he joined the Mariners. Himself and Francisco Lindor. In the playoffs with Seattle, he hit .340 with 3 home runs and 2 stolen bases in 12 games while striking out less than 12% of the time. Aram, it makes sense why every single comment in our comment section when it has anything to do with the Mariners was about re-signing Josh Naylor.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Have you seen a more beloved deadline acquisition?
Nope.
I can't think of one.
I mean,
and
yeah.
what's sneaky is he's only 28 still too. So 5-year deal, like I feel good about the way that's going to age for him. And he's never been more nimble, right? He's stealing bags now, but I feel like from that length too, you're getting the best years of Naylor, theoretically. He clearly can hit in Seattle, which is always an obstacle. You just never know who's going to be able to hit there and who's not. And I think it's just such a great indicator to the fans. You now have Cal Riley on one of the most team-friendly deals in Major League Baseball. Leverage that. You already have Julio Rodriguez locked up. Leverage that and retain the guys that can put your team over the top. And it seems like Naylor, he almost did that this past year and sets them up really well to run it back for a full season next year.
Mariners fans can rest easy. You could take a big sigh of relief. We all saw you. It was one of those things where 29 other fan bases were like, don't worry, Mariners fans. We won't take Josh Naylor away from you. And the Mariners lock him down. Thank you to everybody joining us here on the Just Baseball Show, whether that be on Sports Grid, live on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And again, thank you to everybody who has been joining us throughout the offseason. Make sure to make the Just Baseball Show your first listen when it comes to the offseason. And of course, we'll be rocketing away during the regular season. We only have about 40 seconds left here, Aram. Any parting words of the top 100 before we say goodbye?
Yeah, well, we'll be breaking it all down on the call up as well, like some in more depth in terms of the guys that rose, fell, some of the tougher decisions, all that good stuff. But obviously talking about that in the Discord also. So very pumped about that. And then I know when I'm thinking about the Mariners, I'm looking at their roster and I'm like, man, and then you get Emerson up there too to potentially play third. He gives you an offensive jolt. I'm excited to see what they do and if they add anybody else, but also excited to see what they do with Harry Ford.
Absolutely. So we'll be back, of course, to we'll keep talking about the top 100, but make sure to go check out the Call Up podcast to hear more. And with that, thank you, everybody.